Unfortunately, here we are once more, and somehow it has spiraled into something worse than anybody could have braced themselves for. Because right now, when the topic turns to Clarissa Shields, the so-called three-division phenom, the supposed greatest woman boxer on the planet, the woman who keeps trying to convince the world she's a movement, has officially birthed an entirely new lane of public embarrassment. A lane I'm going to name right here, right now on this platform. And that name is delusion sport. Yes, delusion sport, because if you are ready to dive into this Twitter meltdown, this Papoose picture posting, this Remy Ma poking, this whole circus that has Clarissa looking less like a champion and more like Bertie Mac from above the rim with the lace front sliding sideways, before we go a single second further, smash that like button, hit subscribe, share this video out, and let the algorithm know that we are not playing nice today. Because trust me, I am going to need every single one of you tuned in for this one. I really do. I am being honest with you. I know there is chaos flying everywhere, the internet is melting, the comment sections are at war, the bloggers are eating, the cousins are speaking, the husbands are posting, and right at the dead center of all of this madness sits a woman who genuinely believes she is winning. After I opened my phone this morning and saw that Clarissa Shields had once again tapped on that little blue bird app, the platform formerly known as Twitter, and decided to fire off another one of her trademark delusion grenades, I had to sit back. I had to take a breath. I had to mute my phone for a good hour because honestly, I could not form a sentence. I am dead serious because let me just plant this flag in the ground right at the top. You had every chance in the world to lay low, every opportunity to step out the spotlight, every door open to walk away with even a shred of dignity. And the best move you could draw up was to post a smiling selfie hugged up on a married man, caption it like a bumper sticker about killing him with success, and pretend the entire internet was not laughing directly at the back of your head. Oh my goodness, it is worse than anything we could have predicted. This is catastrophic, and I have to break some news to you. It is only going to spiral deeper into the trench from here because the tweet she sent out, that little success line, that little I'm gonna keep killing them with success line, it is the worst public statement she has ever made in her entire career. And this is the moment she chose to use as her grand response. I should also pause and address this right now because I know the Clarissa apologists are already in the comments warming up their fingers, getting ready to say, well, she did not really mean it like that. She's just confident. She's just unbothered. No. Stop. That is a flat lie wrapped in a glittery bow, because when we look at what Clarissa Shields actually posted, she did not post a belt. She did not post a trophy. She did not post a picture of herself standing inside the museum honoring her career. She posted a photograph of her face pressed up against the husband of Remy Ma, which means the timing was deliberate, the picture was deliberate, the caption was deliberate. So please, do not insult my intelligence by pretending this was random. This was calculated, which makes it all the more humiliating, because seriously, you are telling me that Clarissa Shields, a woman who supposedly carries 3 division belts, who supposedly is the greatest of all time according to her own mouth, sat down, opened her camera roll, scrolled past every accolade, every trophy, every gold medal, every magazine cover, every moment of athletic glory, and the picture she chose to launch her counterattack with was a photograph cuddled up to a married rapper whose wife is currently outclassing her in every public arena. And with this moment, with this once-in-a-lifetime chance to remind the world she is a champion, she comes out swinging with lines like, got him slick, gonna keep killing him with success. Killing who? Killing them with what? Killing them with the picture of a borrowed man? And after reading that tweet, you start to understand exactly why I went quiet for that hour. You start to understand exactly why I said this whole situation has become 1,000 times more cringeworthy than anything we have ever seen in women's boxing drama. Because first off, here we are in a sport where female fighters fight tooth and nail for visibility, beg for respect, beg for paychecks, beg for main event slots, and the one woman who actually got handed the spotlight is using it to dry hump a controversy that has nothing to do with the square circle. If this is the level of self-awareness you are bringing to the table when your back is pinned against the ropes, when the entire internet is laughing, when your own cousin is exposing you, when even bloggers who used to defend you are turning their backs, I do not know what to tell you. You must have skipped every single self-respect lesson life tried to teach you. The streets failed this woman, the gym failed this woman, somebody in her circle definitely failed her. And you know what is genuinely hilarious about all of this? After trying to flip the narrative back onto Remy Ma with that tired killing them with success talking point, the fact that the supporting evidence for this so-called success is a photograph of Papoose, a man whose own rap career has been on life support since Obama's first term, that tells you everything about where Clarissa's mind actually is. Because listen, if the symbol you are pulling out to represent your winning is the husband of the woman you are beefing with, that is not success, sweetheart. That is hostage footage. That is somebody trying to convince themselves before they convince anybody else. I have a strange take, but stay with me because it will make sense in a moment. It feels like this tweet was co-written by the same desperate energy that fuels every reality show villain's third season comeback arc, with the way there are so many tells, so many giveaways, so many signs that the woman who typed it out was actually shaking while pressing send. And it really does feel like, while pretending to be unbothered, Clarissa is doing a children's coloring book version of being unbothered. That is the level of execution that produced this disaster of a post, wrapped up with a victim sticker slapped right across the front of it. And I say that because when Clarissa is trying to look untouchable and just blurts out, "I am killing them with success," while clinging to another woman's husband like a flotation device, well, with this caption, while it seems like she is trying to send a shot at Remy Ma, or maybe that is just her actual love language now and they think this is impressive, that is a curious little detail worth circling back to. But there is too much wreckage piled up in front of us to address it just yet. To be a serious professional athlete, a woman who was supposed to take herself and her image as a champion very seriously, in a moment where her credibility is hanging by a single thread and she cannot afford a single misstep, to refer to your relationship with a married man as your success and to post the man as proof of that success? I cannot be the only one wondering. Did somebody hack her phone? Did somebody set her up? Because there is genuinely no universe where you are walking up to the most public moment of your year with the eyes of two fan bases stapled to your every move, and you decide that the smartest move is to act like you just took advice from a group chat full of teenagers. This is genuinely unhinged. But again, just like building a brand new lane of public collapse, I have to give credit where credit is due. It is creative how pathetic this entire thing has become. That counts for something, does it not? Because honestly, with how childish and immature this whole post is, yet with how serious and aggressive she's trying to come across, that is innovation, right? That is pushing the genre of public meltdowns forward, just in terms of how a person can publicly self-destruct and project that destruction outward to millions of strangers. And not only does it become the most wrong she has ever been about anything in her entire career, she has also opened up a brand new category of public embarrassment in the process. Delusion sport really is here. Clarissa Shields has finally carved out her own lane. There is something out there she can finally call her very own. But I do not want to be the bearer of bad news, however. I have a feeling this lane is not going to last her very long. Because when it comes to the so-called shots this walking pound cake of poor decisions tried to fire off and thought she was going to win the public back over with, let us look at what the self-proclaimed greatest of all time, the supposed face of women's boxing, said while addressing a woman who does not even fight. So technically she can't even respond in the only language Clarissa actually speaks, which is throwing hands. She came out and posted that picture and tagged that energy. The same energy where she basically said, "Look at me, look at my life, look at this man, look at the success, look at how I am unbothered." And then the cheap knockoff caption right behind it, "Got them sick, gonna keep killing them with success." Listen, after reading this, I am going to try to keep my composure, but listen, this is exactly what I'm going to say. After so many enablers have tried to hype up Clarissa Shields over and over again throughout her journey of being protected, coddled, and treated like the prodigy of the sport she has been positioned as, even when she has been ducked by the names that actually move the needle in women's boxing, they always excuse her shortcomings by saying, "Oh, whatever Clarissa knows about her opponents is so devastating, and whatever these other women do behind the scenes is so terrible that if she actually let it out, it would destroy everybody." Well, from the call-out she did years ago, to the social media wars, to even everything circling around Remy Ma, the husband, the marriage, the way Clarissa keeps wedging herself into that storyline, and Clarissa actually knows none of this is helping her, that is the truth. Stop it. Stop doing this to yourself. And I know this for 110% certainty. This is the most confident thing I will ever say into a microphone, which is this. If you are as untouchable and as iconic as Clarissa Shields keeps insisting that she is every single morning when she logs into Twitter to argue with bloggers, let us not forget she literally trademarked the GWOAT brand, which makes all of this even more humiliating. And then after you get exposed, after your own blood relative, your own cousin, starts posting receipts and dragging your name across the timeline, the cousin you grew up with, the one who knows where the bodies are buried, you go out and post to your followers, killing them with success while hugging another woman's husband. Who wrote this caption? A Lifetime movie villain? I want everybody in this comment section to do this with me right now and remind me of something. Tell me what year it is. It is 2026, right? Because if you're telling me that we have a woman trying to unironically use somebody else's marriage as her shield, as her trophy, as her flex in the year 2026, when every woman with a working brain can see straight through that performance, it is time to go pack it up. It really is. This single moment tells me every single thing I need to know about what is coming for this entire era of her career. Because honestly, Clarissa, you want to wave around a married man like a championship belt and frame it as success because you think that's the move that gets the room back on your side. I will just leave that thought right there for a second. I just have to say this entire situation is so bad that even her own family is feeding the timeline, and her cousin's posts hit harder than any of her actual punches in the ring. I am dead serious about that. Her cousin's exposing tweets landed cleaner than the so-called 3-division resume she keeps reading out loud like a grocery list. I am not exaggerating. And you know what is even worse? And something that even I almost forgot about because of how overstimulating this entire public meltdown has become? Well, it is that when you close your eyes and try to picture this moment, this whole Papoose picture moment, I want you to flash back in your mind and specifically rewind to earlier moments where Clarissa did the same exact dance, just with a slightly different costume. Because if you remember, this is not the first time Clarissa Shields has tried to take a real critique, a real piece of feedback from the public, and twist it into an attack on her so she could play the wounded warrior. We have seen this play before. We have seen her run this entire script before, just with a different lighting setup. As if you remember last year's version of the same situation, where she got criticized for the optics of how she was moving with this man, and her response was the same exact pivot. She posted, she ranted, she cried hate, she screamed jealousy. The world was busy pointing out that the situation was strange. Even my supporters were saying it looked off. The blogs were not lying, the fans were not lying. And you know, with that, even when we are now seeing the way Clarissa is going back to that same playbook, from the social media tantrums to the deflection tweets to the "I'm killing them with success" comebacks, give me a break. What did I miss? So many other moments online where Clarissa tried to make a grand statement and ultimately just ended up looking smaller because there was never any real receipt behind any of it, all the way to right now, this moment. Does Clarissa realize she has already filmed this episode? She has tried to clap back at the public, tried to clap back at Remy, tried to clap back at her own cousin, tried to clap back at the bloggers, tried to clap back at the boxing fans, and every single time the result has been the exact same. Because seriously, I know there has been so much that has happened and so much that we have witnessed in this slow public unraveling, but Clarissa is literally taking the same recycled responses, the same recycled deflections, the same recycled victim posture, and just slapping a new caption on top of them. And after she gives it a slightly different coat of paint, she shoots it right back up onto the timeline again. This is a brand new level of pathetic, desperate, and when it comes to Clarissa innovating women's boxing drama, I guess this is on brand for this era because she is single-handedly pioneering and ushering in a brand new age of athletic laziness off the canvas. And just with Clarissa even doing something like this, with this tweet, this Papoose picture as her supporting evidence, while to her remaining defenders, this looks like the queen of boxing returning to clap back and telling everybody their time is over, because she is back. I think to the rest of the world at this point, or at least most people who fundamentally understand what real respect looks like in the public eye, Clarissa sounds a lot more like a contestant on a reality show in the third reunion special where the camera catches her muttering to herself, because she has become an absolute caricature. She is a cartoon antagonist at this stage, who is rinsing and repeating the exact same antics, hoping every single time that maybe this time the public reaction will magically reverse, despite never adjusting her approach, despite never changing the script, despite only switching one prop in the background. And this is genuinely the case right now. It is almost comedic because Clarissa has positioned herself in a spot, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens next when she fights again, where she is no longer the protagonist or even the heel of women's boxing, but she has become the Saturday morning cartoon villain. She's the predictable antagonist who shows up in every episode running the same scheme. Everybody is watching her spiral out, watching her crash out in real time on the timeline, and they just keep scrolling. I mean, look at the response from the culture right now to all of this Papoose drama. It is not flattering. Everybody is treating this like a sideshow. And, well, with your next fight on the horizon, supposedly the most important fight of her current era, the failure and the delusion in this single tweet is gigantic. There are more eyes on her than usual, and more people are seeing the wreckage she has constructed and is now standing right in the middle of. And the consequence of all this is that she has now become a bigger and bigger public punchline. Somebody every casual fan can see is clearly unable to move on from any criticism, any setback, any embarrassment. And that is what is really happening here. When we get to the Remy bars in this tweet, which there are technically only a few of, they all go three directions. Either Clarissa is trying to imply Remy is jealous, or Clarissa is trying to imply Remy is irrelevant, or Clarissa is trying to reframe and flip Remy's last freestyle as a sign Remy is somehow obsessed with her. And they all land even softer than I am making them sound. And I just want to take a moment and point out how shocking it is that anybody on her team has the cognitive ability to look at this tweet, look at this entire timeline, and think, yes, this is the move, this is the strategy, this is what we send out, while she is simultaneously fighting for public sympathy and trying to keep her brand deals intact. I mean, again, this is Clarissa being an innovator. Do not let anybody convince you otherwise on how to be the most publicly unbothered while being clearly and visibly the most bothered person on the platform. There are levels to this, and Clarissa is the Michael Jordan of pretending she's not crashing out while crashing out. I do not even want to read every line and every reply she has fired off in response to all of this. I will let the screenshots speak for themselves, but they are honestly just such a waste of energy to break down one by one. You can read them right here, but they are not really worth dissecting line by line for the most part. However, with all of these subliminal jabs and these veiled shots she keeps tossing at Remy Ma, acting like Remy is not the woman whose freestyle is currently rotating in every club, every lounge, every barbershop, every cookout in the country right now, that is where the disconnect begins. To act like Remy did not just deliver one of the most replayed freestyles of the year, to act like Remy did not just lock in a brand new network deal, to act like Remy did not just outclass her in the court of public opinion without even saying her government name, that is just flat out wrong, and it is dishonest to herself more than anybody else, because she is essentially screaming at a sky that is undeniably blue. This is like fighting with gravity, Clarissa, and this is exactly why most of her shots are not really worth analyzing in detail, with the exception of one final line I want to circle back to before we close this out. But it really boils down to the simple, obvious fact: Remy Ma is one of the most respected women in hip-hop, whether Clarissa accepts that or not. And so to keep pretending Remy is some random nobody, some background extra in Clarissa's biopic, some forgotten relic of an older era, when Remy has had a bigger platform than Clarissa every single time they've both been visible in the same news cycle, all of this, in doing this, is making Clarissa look delusional, not the other way around. Remy never made a misstep like this in this entire saga because she is just too sharp, or maybe she just has basic emotional intelligence. We should not even need to applaud that. It is the absolute minimum, and that is the cold truth. Remy never came at Clarissa and posted pictures with random men trying to imply jealousy. She never came at Clarissa claiming her belts are fake or her career is a lie. She kept everything on the surface where her actual fan base lives, which is in bars, in lyrics, in delivery, in receipts. And again, Remy never said Clarissa was not a champion in the ring because that would be a lie, and it would make her own jabs feel like they were coming from a place of insecurity. You see the difference, and you see exactly why Clarissa is starting to sound completely off the rails right now. even if she is not actually that far gone in real life. And I will say, specifically with this final piece, the one moderately interesting move in this entire situation, where Clarissa tries to lean on Bible verses, where she tries to flip her public mistakes into some kind of holy persecution arc, this whole thing where she is now positioning herself as a misunderstood saint being attacked by sinners, while she is photographed cheesing up next to another woman's husband. The whole he who is without sin moment that has been hovering in her comments lately, that was a tell. That was a sign that even she is starting to feel the temperature rising, and ended up being a pretty telling moment. And honestly, it is funny to me because it shows that Clarissa has indeed been reading the comments, has been monitoring the timeline, has been processing every single thing the public has been throwing her way. Which, you know what that proves? It strengthens every critic that came before. Because what is Clarissa right now? She is a reader, and she is a responder. And Clarissa folding emotionally on Twitter over what is basically a marriage joke from a cousin, that was also revealing in its own way. It is wild to see Clarissa, or her advisors, having paid such close attention to every single tweet, every single comment, every single reply that has been thrown her way. And just speaking of being deranged and embarrassing yourself with that Papoose picture caption, where she is essentially saying, "Look at this man like he's a trophy." You see the cringe of it right there. This shows that Clarissa is jealous of Remy Ma. And clearly, after Remy demonstrated how a real public figure handles drama by saying almost nothing and letting her work and her marriage speak for her, that must have stung Clarissa to her core. I mean, understandably so. So lace up, sharpen your eyes, and stay locked in for what is coming next. One tweet at a time, one selfie at a time, one borrowed husband at a time. Catch me next time.